We're taking a look at the inside workings of the World Wide Web and the Internet. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're on the former Myrtle Beach Air Force Base at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on the Internet and the World Wide Web, and we're visiting with Charles Gartrell, the president and founder of Bear Swamp Lumber Company. Good morning, Charles. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
Incredible opportunity to highlight the web and the Internet and to try to demystify what so many folks consider a real big, gigantic topic. Can we talk real quick about yourself? Are you originally from the area?
No, sir, I'm not. I actually was born in Baltimore and spent most of my adult life around the Washington, D.C. area.
Is that right? How long have you been down in Horry County?
We've been in Horry County. I've been in Horry County for 6+ years.
Okay. And what brought you down here?
Married a local lady.
Is that right? Married a local lady. Was she down here when you came down, or was she up there?
She was here before I moved down here. The story's a little interesting. Both she and my mother, who happens to live here at the beach, are friends, know each other very well, and my mother was the matchmaker.
Is that right? Yeah. Well, that's always
that's interesting.
A great plan. Surely exactly. Mothers always try to plan that out, but it never worked.
Yeah, this time it did.
This time it did.
Yeah.
That's great. What were you doing before you founded Bear Swamp Lumber Company?
I worked 20+ years in space technology, mostly dealing with things such as manned space flight systems, scientific satellites, communication satellites, and planning for developing advanced space technologies. Most of that was dealing with NASA as one of the many contractors that they hire over the years. For instance, the last 5 years of my career in aerospace was primarily in the space station program and developing some of the conceptual flight experiments, many of which have actually turned out to be real.
Golly, that must be a good feeling.
It is. It is. To finally see something that you've put a lot of effort into over many years and to actually come to fruition. And in many ways actually matching some of the things we actually thought about happening.
Do you go back and visit with some of the folks you worked with?
Well, yes, I do. In fact, we have, as a business, we have some relationships with NASA, both in terms of a NASA project we've done, as well as a cooperative Space Act agreement that we have with NASA to market some NASA information and technologies to a business community.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. How about real quick about Bear Swamp Lumber Company? Where did that name originate?
I love that question because I always get the answer in an interesting way. There's two parts to it. One part is geographic. Now, we're located outside of Conway on Route 701, and you can literally go down 701 and see this wee little sign that says Bear Swamp. Okay, we're near that area. Second part of it is sort of tongue-in-cheek. Having managed and run engineering divisions and engineering efforts over many years, I've had a lot of contractors approach us or team with us or whatever the case may be with lots of interesting names, very few of which have any relationship to what they did, and we decided to have some fun. And lumber company is such a common thing for this area because of its history that that's what we chose, to have fun.
That's great. Now, is the web name that revolves around Bear Swamp Lumber Company, is it just that, or is it shorter or longer?
Well, actually, the web name we use is bearweb.com. In fact, we answer the phone that way when we're called. And so Bear Swamp Lumber Company, other than the legal entity and then being on letterhead and business cards, that's better. We use bearweb.com more commonly.
And what prompted you to found Bear Swamp Lumber?
Actually, it's an interesting thing, and some of which has to deal with the things we've done, I've personally done with NASA towards the end of the career, when I was up in the D.C. area, in using the Internet to work with small business. And we were probably in the forefront of using electronic media and electronic venues to be able to convey a program to small business as well as to get small business to participate in the program. And from that, segued, if you will, into working with a friend of mine who had a small retail shop and had been using email as a way of communicating with his potential clientele, of using some resources he had to market his business. And he's done very well with it. And that's how we sort of started.
That's interesting. And why do you think, you mentioned the D.C. area and having spent so much of your life up there, obviously following your bride-to-be down here, or your bride down here, but not setting up shop in the greater D.C. area or Baltimore as opposed, I mean...
Why? Mainly because the direction I wanted to head in with that business had nothing necessarily to do with the federal government. It was really focused on travel, tourism, and retail, the commercial side of the business. And quite honestly, this is, living in Horry County, and we got the Grand Strand, and we have a big tourism base for this state. Plus realizing that the kinds of things we do you can be literally anywhere in the world and help clientele.
Golly, that's right. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. The services you provided in the beginning when you founded Bear Swamp Lumber Company and how that's expanded. Can we talk real quick about that?
We certainly can. Primarily, we started out what I'll characterize as a design boutique. We primarily did nothing more than designing static web documents, imagery, layout, text, so forth. And we have moved dramatically so over the past several years to actually providing more interactivity, particularly in the form of commerce systems, customer relationship management, the ability to do B2B communications as well as business to consumer products as well, selling things online, reservations online, those kinds of things.
What can a consumer or what can a business expect when they come to you for help in designing a website?
From a business perspective, we're a little bit different than just simply a design house. We really help that business person translate his business processes and business methodologies to the internet so that they can conduct business, whether that business may be selling something or subscribing to something or simply providing a way of getting contact information so they can expand their market.
Okay. And as a small business person, let's say a viewer has a small business, what could BearWeb do for me, or what could the internet do for me?
Well, generically from the internet standpoint, what it can do for you is obviously expand your marketplace, expand your market presence, and for a relatively inexpensive way compared to some other media. It gives you a reach that is outside of your local jurisdiction that simply would be very difficult for you to get otherwise, and allows you to augment your business in ways that you just never envisioned. And what we do, obviously, is try to understand what that business person or entity is trying to do. We do more than just simply provide what I'll call a brochureware website. Yes, we do that kind of work, but our focus is more on conducting business.
Great. That would help. Can you give the viewers a sense of a small business site that you've helped develop, or a couple of sites that you've
Yes,
helped
I can.
develop?
I'll give several examples because there are different marketplaces. For instance, Burroughs and Chapin Prudential. We do both the residential and commercial website. Part of that is it provides them a way of getting leads for sales. It provides them a way of marketing their agents. The real estate side, the residential side specifically, exploits the MLS listing services to provide a real-time searchable capability for their listings.
So that's one example. Can you think of any others?
Excuse me. Yeah, another example is a business up in Maryland called Peach Creek Shops. It's a small hobby shop, model railroading specifically, and we've been associated with them since 1996, believe it or not, and have transformed their website to something that's highly interactive, where they can sell products online, where they use advertising media, electronic media, to advertise their products somewhere, and they're very successful with that.
And that's in Maryland?
Yes, that's in Maryland. And remember what I said about being able to do things all over the world. Another local thing to consider is key attractions. We do the back-end technologies, the hosting and the hosting environment, and all of the technology services that allow them to do storefront solutions, reservation systems, and customer relationship management.
That's MyrtleBeachKeyAttractions.com.
Yes. MyrtleBeachTrips.com.
MyrtleBeachTrips.com. How about the most difficult project you've undertaken, Charles?
There are probably two, and I'll use two because they're different in their level of difficulty. One is a site known as the NASA SBIR and STTR website. It's a website specifically devoted to small business and involving small business and federal research and development. There's a law passed that's required by all federal agencies with more than $500 million in research and development budget.
Mm-hmm.
The site is very large. There are over 6,500 searchable documents on that site, which primarily are project abstracts. There are literally thousands of businesses who are involved in the program, and they use that as their primary communications mechanism to send out, to provide information on solicitations, as well as business information to help these firms be successful commercially. As I mentioned, Myrtle Beach Trips, there's another extreme in terms of complexity, but the complexity is not necessarily on the public side. The complexity is on the back-end sides that provide the business solutions and systems that allow Myrtle Beach Trips, Boroughs and Chapin, as well as the public, to conduct commerce. And it's a very complex system, and it's over 80,000 lines of code involved.
Golly, Charles. When you talk about conducting business online, you really begin to think about safety on the internet or safety online.
Right.
We hear about safety on the internet. Is it safe?
Answer fundamentally, yes. There are obviously things to avoid. We do recommend for the public not to hand out your email address and your name willy-nilly to lots of different news groups and registration processes. There's not much value in doing that, unless you're really, truly interested in it. The other thing to be careful of, particularly with children, is to assure yourself that that website is compliant with a law that was passed. It goes by COPPA. Always get it wrong, so it basically deals with child protection online. It's a legal requirement. The websites have to deal with children. You need to be compliant with it. If they're not compliant with it, you might want to shy away from it. Excuse me. We also recommend, particularly if you have children in the home, to make sure you have a filtering software on your machines, just to block those things that you really don't want your kids to look at. And there are, unfortunately, a lot of things you don't want your kids to look at.
Just got a couple of minutes, Charles. I wanted to ask real quick, we have less than a couple of minutes, but I was trying to think about the safety of using a credit card.
Right. I'm sure there's been a lot of hullabaloo over this, a lot of concerns. To be honest, the use of credit cards online is safer than mail order, safer than telephone solicitation, and many times safer than going to your local store. What is the problem, and is human nature. It will always be the problem of some disgruntled employee or some person who regrettably has access to information, selling that information, using that information in the wrong way. And all companies, all businesses are faced with those kinds of issues. It's the human side. It's not the technology.
Right. Lastly, Charles, how do you think the internet will change going forward?
Oh, well, we're seeing some of that things now, where we're seeing the internet becoming so commonplace that it's integrated into your home, wiring your home. Appliances. We've got television already that have web capability, but we're looking at appliances like a refrigerator, where you could actually, from a refrigerator, could actually keep track of what it is you need to buy and order that from your local store. And so you just go in and pick up your order and pay for it, of course. But we're also seeing it in terms of mobile communications platforms. And the impediment there is really not the platforms. It's the infrastructure. As the infrastructure becomes more widely based, the ability for people to be able to get the internet on mobile devices inexpensively, worldwide, will happen.
You heard Charles say it. your refrigerator will be able to order your groceries, let the grocery store know so you can go by there. That's the potential future of the Internet. We're visiting with Charles Gartrell, the president and founder of Bear Swamp Lumber Company. Visit him online at bearweb.com. Charles, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. Good morning. Welcome back to Carolina People. This morning we're on the former Myrtle Beach Air Force Base at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on the Internet and web design. And we're visiting with Kerry Capps, a web designer at Bear Swamp Lumber Company. Good morning, Kerry. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Incredible opportunity to highlight the Internet and the World Wide Web and to try to demystify so much of what goes on online. Let's talk about yourself. Are you originally from the area?
No, I'm from around Kansas City, Missouri area.
Is that right?
Came here in '95, went to Coastal. You know, went through the schooling there. Been here ever since. Love the area. It's small town, but it's kind of big town as well.
Right.
So I really enjoy it.
Do you get back to Kansas City often or that area?
Usually once or twice a year. For the past few years, it was just kind of around Christmas time. Summer was always really busy for Bear Swamp, as it usually is.
Right.
It's, you know, one of those things. Parents enjoy coming out here. They love the ocean.
Yeah.
They really get a kick out of it. So, you know, they love it too. I'm afraid they're going to move down here. But I'm just kidding, Mom. But yeah, I really enjoy it. Can't complain.
And you've been here since '95.
Since '95.
Okay, great. Bear Swamp Lumber, you said it's pretty busy in the summer times. Mm-hmm. Why would it be busy in the summer?
Most of our clients are kind of tourism based.
Uh-huh.
So Myrtle Beach is kind of an off and on season kind of a place.
Right.
So when the summer kind of ends, we kind of start slowing down. People don't want to put new things up. And actually kind of winter is the start, but it really keeps going all through the summer to keep the sites fresh, new stuff, keep visitors coming to the sites. So it stays pretty busy for us during the summer. Mm-hmm. And more people are inclined to get things going in the summer.
Yeah.
You know, especially if they think that they may have stuff good for Christmas time. Mm-hmm. The sooner they get it out in the year, the better it will be for Christmas time.
How long have you been with Bear Swamp Lumber, Kerry?
I was hired on in 2000.
Okay.
So this April will be 3 years.
Is that right?
Right.
And your position there as web designer, what does that mean?
What a web designer does is we take the ideas that a client may have and basically make them digital. We do the layouts of the web pages, the graphic design for the pages, the navigation, the way the site is structured, links, things like that. We're responsible for getting those laid out, implemented, and tested.
And so all websites have to have all that.
Right. If they don't, there's going to be problems, and they're going to have to be addressed later on.
You were in school before you joined Bear Swamp. Had you done any other?
I actually went to school as a psychology major, and the only sites that I had done were kind of just personal sites for myself. Mm-hmm. So it had never been necessarily a commercial or public website. It was just more for my entertainment, and you know, I just kind of evolved from there.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about the aspect of being a web designer. Is that your exclusive responsibility with Bear Swamp Lumber Company?
It's kind of a jack of all trades kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I do database development as well.
Right.
Design the dynamic applications that a site might need, things like that.
Okay. What are some of the criteria that you might look at when a customer, a potential customer, comes to you to talk about designing a website?
The main thing is keeping, if it's like a brick and mortar company, keeping that reputation for that company and passing it on through to the website. Mm-hmm. Same with the quality of the company. If it's a quality company, they need to have a quality website. So we want to be able to look at their business and translate that into an online form. And, you know, always budget is going to kind of dictate some of that. But there are ways to do high-quality things for not that much money.
Can you give the viewers an example of a simple business site and some of the ways to keep it simple and to keep it relatively inexpensive if a viewer wants to launch a website, maybe it's business-related or just for fun?
Sure. One website that we did just recently, it's it's for a real estate agent. And it's a fairly small site, MichelleRappa.com. And this site provides information about the area, a little bit about her, and it also allows her to update her listings whenever she wants. So that the public can then go in, look at the listings. She can upload pictures so they can see the pictures of it. And that allows her to keep visitors updated with her stuff, but also provide some additional tools such as a mortgage calculator.
Right.
That, you know, if they see a house, well, they can go right on the same site. Well, okay, you know, they want 120,000. They can determine what they can afford, what they can't afford. And, you know, that's typical of the sites that we do anymore. The more interactive things that they have, the better it is.
How interesting. That is a great site, and that's MichelleRappa.com.
Right.
Okay, great. Well, we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
For a small, aside from the exposure and the traffic, there's some other ways that a business or small business person could benefit from having a website?
Anymore, it's a great way to make money. People will maybe come up with their own product lines, for instance.
Right.
If it's something that they have success with, maybe in a store or a retail outlet, they can put it online and they can sell it. And it helps keep their costs down because they don't actually have to take it into a store, you know, spend the legwork. They can actually put it online. They get the orders in their email, however, and off they go. They can ship it straight from their house or their building, wherever they are. It's less legwork. It's less overhead for them.
That's a great point. How about considerations that a web designer would give in helping make a website successful?
A lot of it is the content. I mean, content is king.
Yeah.
You have to make it look attractive graphic-wise. You know, you keep people's interest, things like that. But to get the traffic, search engines are a must. Google, Yahoo, things like that. And, you know, it's the little things that really help.
Right.
You know, the more content, the more engaging the content. Like I said earlier, the more interactive features you have, the better it's going to be for the user.
And what are some of those tricks or little features that a web designer might use to catch a viewer's or a customer's eye?
The more a site changes from time to time, the more it gives the impression to the user that, you know, this site is always changing. There's always going to be new stuff. It can be just simple image changes that maybe every day a new image is in place. It can be something like that. We have a site where it's a small restaurant site, and depending on the day, it will show a different image for the menu. And their menus change every day. So does the image. It changes every day.
That's correct.
So it's something that can do that. And, you know, the more you can get the person involved in the site, the user, the better that site's going to be in the long run.
Are there any guidelines that you as a web designer would use in designing a website?
The guidelines that we have are it has to be as accessible to the most people at the same time. With the new federal laws, especially the disabled acts that have come along, they have to be accessible to, like, people with blindness or deafness. Or, you know, if you have a site that's more visually oriented, it's not going to do that well. But if it's like you want to sell something, you want to make it as accessible to everybody. So we always look at the accessibility. We also look at how it looks on different computers. Macintosh shows different than Windows. Even on Windows, Internet Explorer will display a page different than Netscape Navigator. And that's something that we have to look out for and design for as we go.
That's a great point. If a viewer was interested in possibly becoming a web designer, how do they go about doing that, Kerry?
There are classes. You can take classes for that. I personally I bought a modem, and there was a book that came with the modem, and it included a section on how to do a web page.
Wow.
And that's where it started. I followed the example and put it in there, and that was in 95, 96.
Is that right?
And it's just progressed from there. But there are classes, more colleges and technical colleges are actually having web design courses.
Golly. Kerry, lastly, what do you like best about what you do as a web designer?
The thing that I like best is that it's challenging. It's not the same every day. We may have a project that'll take us a week to complete, but the day-to-day things that need to get that project done are never the same. Even though you may have to go back the next day to maybe touch up something, you may come up with something totally different that will allow that process to work. So the fact that it is never the same from day to day, or even project to project, they may look the same on the outside, but when you get into the internals, it's never the same, and it makes it really fun to do, and then also to see how successful the site that you've done is. That's really rewarding.
The man has a job that changes every day. Every day. Kerry Capps, web designer, Bear Swamp Lumber Company. Check him out at bearweb.com. Thanks so much, Kerry.
You're welcome. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank Dimensional Marketing, IntelliStrand, Bear Swamp Lumber Company, the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce, and Burroughs and Chapin for helping us explore the World Wide Web.